I've been playing the Forza Horizon 6 pre-release preview build, and you guys have been asking me your questions on my YouTube channel. So in this video, I'm just going to go through, answer all your questions completely honestly. If I know, I'll tell you. If I don't know, I'll tell you also. Is it good in the wheel and what was supported? I used Logitech G Pro. It felt absolutely fine. For the PC version, does it provide more telemetry than SimHub than Forza Horizon 5? So the pre-release preview was on Xbox, but I did see in the settings menu there is the data out stuff. Whether it's more than Forza Horizon 5, I don't know at this stage. Next question, VR support. So again, the pre-release preview was on Xbox. The game is coming out first on Xbox and PC, then PS5 after. I would be very surprised if it supports PSVR 2 on PS5, but I wouldn't rule it out 100% because it feels like such an important game for Microsoft and Xbox, but I'd be very surprised. Native triple support, again, I don't know because I was playing on Xbox and Xbox doesn't support triples. Force feedback, for me, you have to dial it in. Out of the box, felt pretty rough, but I did two different settings. One to simulate really authentically, in my view, power steering, and one for more of a sim racer feel. I'm going to do a separate video on that. What about TrueForce? So like I said, I was using the Logitech G Pro, is a TrueForce supported wheel. I could not sense any TrueForce in the game. There was no separate setting for it, unlike in Forza Motorsport, so I'm not sure whether TrueForce is supported, but I couldn't feel anything special in my opinion. How were the driving physics? I quite like the driving physics. I felt the best way of putting it is that every car that I bought or won or tuned felt different to drive. It had good character, but it is an open world driving game. I was using the simulation setting. However, you can drive onto time trial circuits and do time trialing. So there are areas of the game where you can do Whisper It, kind of proper sim racing, and I think the driving physics kind of hold up. It's no Assetto Corsa, it's not Le Mans Ultimate, but I think the physics are pretty good. Traffic density, so when you're in the city, it's not block-to-block traffic. If you go out in the countryside, it can get pretty sparse. When you're sort of in the middle, I would say is what you would expect. It's definitely not a level up in terms of traffic density, which I was kind of hoping for. How do the roads look like? So the roads are wide, as I mentioned in the preview. However, because you're often in really powerful road cars, that means they're a bit more forgiving. Everything is pretty much destructible as well. So even if you go a little bit wide on a road and hit the barriers, you'll normally just destroy them. If you don't go off the banking, you can come back on. How was the driving experience? Physics, tarmac, terrain, road types. So I had to tune the force feedback on the off-road stuff just to make sure I could get that feeling. The loose stuff is also quite interesting. A lot of your cars won't drive well on it. If you've got a car that is tuned really to be good on tarmac, it's just not going to be well in loose conditions. The tarmac driving I quite enjoyed, but it doesn't feel super grippy, I would say. I feel Test Drive Unlimited Solar Crown has a really underrated driving model on tarmac. I don't think a lot of people are playing that game, so a lot of people aren't experiencing it. Forza Horizon 6 for me didn't feel quite as intuitive as Test Drive Unlimited Solar Crown on the tarmac, which is where you're going to be spending most of your time. Maybe something they're going to work on, but yeah, the physics of the game feel fine, but I want to, on tarmac, feel like I've got more grip. How is driving on a wheel? Absolutely fine for me. So again, I was using my G Pro. Pretty much all the footage you can see here, I'm on the steering wheel. It's absolutely fine for me. I actually felt like I wanted to drive in cockpit mode. I drove in cockpit mode a lot more than you think. I don't know if it's a question coming up because I'm only seeing the questions as they pop up in this video, by the way. This is complete honest take. But the wheel rotation on the driver avatar in the car is 540 degrees. So it's not 180, not 360, not terrible, but it's not a full 1080, it's 540. So I feel like that's generally enough to encourage you to drive on a wheel. I certainly feel like a wheel is probably the best way you're going to have driving Forza Horizon 6. Driving on a controller would be better. I don't think driving on a controller would be better, 100%. I think if you've got a nice circular wheel, I think it's really engaging to drive on a steering wheel. I think the moments of frustration are when you crash into another car and you've kind of got to reverse and stuff like that. That can get a bit frustrating, but I like weaving through the traffic. I prefer it more than Forza Horizon 5, which felt more like a developed on controller game for me. What cars are in? So there's a ton of cars in the pre-release preview that you'll be spotting in this footage. For example, this Honda S2000 I kind of found by the side of the road. I put in an offer to buy it. I bought it. and then I kind of tuned it a little bit crazily. And all of these cars have different characteristics, especially on the gearboxes. You can get 7, 8, 9, 10 speed gearboxes, and that really turns them from, like, you know, short burst racing cars to motorway cruisers and stuff like that. How good is the customization? I felt like the customization was a little bit like held back in this pre-release version because I couldn't do a lot of visual customization, but I could really change the characteristics of the cars. For example, my Nissan Silvia, I engine swapped it, but I kept it on like stock racing tires, which made it a real handful to drive, but really, really fun to do. Whereas my Dodge Challenger, I really upgraded everything on that and tried to max out the engine. And like the S2000, I tried to keep it as like a fun car to take around the city. So each car had its own characteristic, which was kind of fun. What car, different physics, with car sounds. Car sounds, I feel like they can be better. I want to be completely honest with you. I feel like these cars are so wild, I want them to sound insane. And I'm in the cockpit for a lot of it as well. I want it to sound absolutely crazy. I feel like they can do a better job on the sound. I'll also tweak the volume settings to like really make them sing, but I feel like this game should have fantastic sound. How big is the map, weather and season? So in this pre-release there were no change of seasons. The map itself is really big. So the map itself is big. I would just say as part of that, Tokyo feels quite small. The city feels quite small in my opinion. It doesn't feel like somewhere you're going to get lost in and get really stuck into. It kind of feels a little bit like the cities in Tesla Interstellar Crown, which are also quite sparse. Like within a few roads, you're kind of out of the city. Does it have better progression and structure? I would say, so even though I ended the pre-release with quite a lot of cars, all the cars felt individual to me and had character. So again, that's when I go back to like the physics model. The physics model for me allows the cars to drive differently. I hope I'm explaining that correctly. And therefore the cars have character. It doesn't just feel like a bland, it's just throwing a load of cars at you. I would say that I was disappointed that it's not really this sort of story of an outsider. Like within, I think I can talk about the prologue, but I'm not allowed to. The one thing I can't show is like the prologue mission, but you're driving like insane cars pretty quickly, and I would rather you're like starting out in a Civic for a long time. AI is not bad. You'll see some racing in this video. Multiplayer I was not able to do. I'm really curious to see how big the lobby sizes are going to be. Obviously, I would love for there to be like massive lobbies. I just don't think that's going to be the case. But this sort of game with like 128 player lobby would be an absolute madness. Split screen, I'm not sure. I very much doubt. I'm going to say I very much doubt this game has split screen. I mean, Gran Turismo 7 technically has split screen, but even that's kind of balk. So I really don't see this having split screen. They're going back to the story. I'd love it if they just held the line a little bit on the story and that you're a complete outsider, you're a nobody, and you've really got to work your way up, maybe doing like illegal street meets and stuff. As it happens, you're not like the top dog at the festival, different to Forza Horizon 5, you fly in as a massive celebrity, which I didn't like. Forza Horizon 6, you're more of a nobody, but you're not a complete nobody. That might be my personal preference on that, but I can sense there was maybe some tension between different perspectives and different opinions in the development team for this, because there are elements that make you feel like you're nobody, but then you end up driving pretty crazy cars soon on. So interesting. The question is just how. I would say this is going to be a massive game. Like obviously it's coming out on Xbox and PC first. I think when this comes to PS5, this is going to complement Gran Turismo 7 very, very, very nicely indeed. And I was pleasantly surprised by the game. I had no crashes whatsoever. I was able to use my wheel. I was able to understand the different cars. It felt a little bit like Pokemon, dare I say, collecting the cars and like tuning them for different circumstances. And I love the idea that you can drive onto a time trial circuit and just start time trialing. Make sure to follow me. Make sure to subscribe if you want to see more like this. If you've got any more questions, honestly, put them in the comments and maybe I'll just do another video. I'll see you in the next one.